What are we doing with AI? How are we building or using or platforming AI? Is that going to displace any of the people that we're doing? I think the answer is not today.
McGregor thing, right? I'm not here to take part. I'm here to take over, right?
I haven't sat in the seat, and so a lot of times I do have to take the criticism of my ideas and be okay with that. That's one thing. If you're gonna ask the question, you have to be okay with the answer.
Yeah. What I think made it easier though is the fact that I was doing so many of those refinances for a long time and on a daily basis, and it's just nonstop grind. That when I switched over to doing just only purchase business, it was kind of like I was signing like a relief. Like I can actually focus more on this, you know.
All right, we are here today to sit down and talk to one of our top producing, one of our longest tenured escrow officers, Albert Tapia.
Hey,
thank you for coming by. We are in our Mission Valley studio. So for Albert, who works in Chula Vista, made the drive up. So thank you for joining us. We are kind of here today to hear a little bit about your story and to ask some questions specific to escrow, open up the kimono, if you will, on what actually happens behind the scenes. So Albert, let's start with an easy one. Let's get warmed up a little bit. What is the path or the journey that you took to get to the escrow officer position?
Well, I was a teenager working at Vaughn's, and there was a First American Title office branch right next to the Vaughn's. I applied there, and I got a job as a courier back when they were at downtown 411 Ivy. And I got a job as a courier, so every day I would get in my little white Ranger, and I would be the courier guy that would show up at every real estate office and pick up mail and deliver title packages. So my route was the Pacific Beach and La Jolla route, and on that route, I ended up going into a Pickford Escrow branch. Dana Shakaroff was the escrow officer manager there, and I just got to know her over time, and I found out that I was going to be a dad when I was 20 years old. So I decided that being a courier wasn't good enough. I noticed that her office was on the beach there on Prospect Street, had a nice ocean view in the window. I noticed an empty desk and I said, "Hey, I'm looking for a job. Can I apply for anything? Nobody sits here." And she said, "Well, do you know what escrow is?" I was like, "I'm going to be honest, I have no idea what the word means, but if you give me a chance, I promise you'll never regret it." And she did.
Were you hired on the spot? That was your interview?
It was not on the spot.
Okay.
I think she asked me to come in for a formal interview.
Okay.
After that, semantics or whatnot, but
sure.
But she gave me the shot. I was hired as a receptionist, and that was about 25 years ago now. Within 6 months, I was an assistant, and the rest is history.
You started. It's been, I want to say 11 years. It's been 11.
I think it's about to be 10 or about to be 11. I'm not sure.
Okay, so yeah, my memory doesn't go back nearly that far either.
Yeah.
But you've been here a long time. But prior to coming here, you were running a really large refi desk. And coming to New Venture, you transitioned into really wanting to focus on agent relationships, investors, but building your desk, almost not even almost, but rebuilding your desk with those relationships long term. Can you talk a little bit about maybe what it was like running a refi desk, and then maybe a little bit about the transition into purchase and working with agents and investors?
Yeah, it was actually more of a transition back to purchases because the first 5 years that I was with Pickford Escrow, we only did purchases.
Oh, okay.
So I had never even seen a refinance. I didn't even know how to do one when I got to my next stop at Chicago Title. So I was there for 10 years, and as soon as I got there, I thought I was going to hit the ground running with resale business and whatnot, but no, those title reps got me a whole lot of refis.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what they do. So I ended up doing about 120 to 150 refis per month. I was getting about between 5 and 10 sets on any given day of loan docs to prepare, to close, to disperse on any given day. So that was a lot. And, I'm sure you can imagine there was some burnout after 10 years of doing that. But in that time, maybe in the last 3 years of that time, I started myself focusing on trying to get more resale business, whichever way I could. And by the time I left, I was already doing about maybe $30,000 in fees in resale business on top of the refi business. So I felt like I had some good momentum there on things that I was kind of getting on my own. And I just felt like the time was right. So I switched over to New Venture Escrow after meeting with you a couple times.
Yeah.
And boy, that was the best decision I've ever made. Holy, let me tell you that. The results were immediate. All of the business that I had at Chicago Title came with me because it was kind of self-generated. So I just left the refis behind. I kind of retired from those. And then I met Tanya right away, and she's been the best to work with, and we just kind of hit the ground running. What I think made it easier though is the fact that I was doing so many of those refinances for a long time and on a daily basis, and it's just nonstop grind. That when I switched over to doing just only purchase business, it was kind of like a sign of like a relief. Like I can actually focus more on this, and the escrow fees are actually better than a refinance fee, and it just gives you a little bit more breathing room to do a transaction than to always be a rush. And so that was great. But I did get a lot of organizational skills, a lot of prioritization skills, and just overall a better sense of how to manage my day and know how to prioritize and just get everything done in a timely fashion.
Yeah, no, that's great. I am curious, and I don't know the answer to this, and I don't think I've ever asked really anyone, what is a day kind of like? How do you structure and organize some of that day? So from maybe the time that you get in till the time, I mean, maybe this is a little bit generic, just from the standpoint of like every file can have something different or fires
Yeah.
can come up. But if you go into a day, is there something that you do early, midday, or like how do you structure the day? And then also with that, maybe talk a little bit about as far as how you operate your unit and how you kind of manage the different pieces in your unit.
Yeah. So my days are pretty structured in that we're usually closing 1 to 2 escrows basically every single day. So I can kind of manage it the same way. So in the morning, I'll come in and I'll go through my emails because from the time that I log out, whatever time that is the day before, and the time I get in at 8:30 when we open, I'll already have 30, 50 emails in there. So I log in, start clearing those out, start delegating work to the team, and once I get my email caught up, then the focus goes to what are we funding today? What are we trying to close today? So then I get with Myrna, who's on my team, who helps me with the fundings. We make sure we're working on the fundings, make sure we're following up with buyers on closing funds, make sure we're packaging loan documents and getting them to the bank for closing. So we get the fundings done. If there's any escrows to open in the morning, I'll open those up myself as well, and then I'll give those up to Veronica, who's also on my team, from there. Once the fundings are done, then usually we're getting requests for more HUDs and more loan docs that are incoming from the banks, and we start working on those for documents that are going to be signed that afternoon or that night as well. In between that, I'm also coordinating with Veronica on making sure we're getting seller and buyer packages out, making sure that paperwork is being checked back in, making sure we're getting payoffs ordered, making sure we're sending HOA docs out and getting those ordered and whatnot. And then I'm fielding phone calls and problem solving on anything that comes up, anything out of the ordinary as far as credits or rent backs or holdbacks or whatnot. So yeah, and then you go home at the end of the day, and then you come back in the next day, and you got another 50 emails, and you start all over again. I didn't even mention that I have to disperse the files that closed the previous day. So on top of funding the files, I'm also trying to balance and disperse the files and get wires out in the morning on the ones that closed the day before too.
Interesting. Yeah. We were talking a little bit before we started recording, and I guess we often forget escrow as being the hub of a transaction. Talk a little bit about how many people you're communicating on for one file, because I think that's maybe not necessarily talked about as much as just the sheer amount of calls, emails, communication, because of the amount of parties that are interested in one particular property.
Yeah, no, it's not overwhelming, but it can be a lot. Most other people in the transaction have one self-interest, right? A buyer only cares about the buy side, a seller only cares about them selling. The buyer's agent's priority is the buyer. The listing agent prioritizes the seller. The mortgage broker prioritizes the buyer. And we kind of have to talk to everybody and anybody, the buyer and the buyer's wife and the buyer's dad who's gifting funds and the seller and, everybody's involved, and we're getting questions left and right, and we have to talk to sellers about how to complete their paperwork and how to complete their tax forms and getting in their payoff information so we can order their payoffs. do you have one HOA? Do you have two HOAs? We got to get those ordered. You have to pay the upfront fee. We're talking to the buyer at the same time. Here's all your paperwork. You got to review these. You got to approve these. We need to know how you want to hold title. Are you married? You have to let us know these things. We're talking to agents about, we're getting calls daily and emails. How's it going? Is everything good to go? Do you need anything from me? We need their commission breakdowns too. And now the trend now is to wire commission so that, we have to work with them on those things. And in the middle of that, we're working with the title company on their report and making sure we're clearing all the liens, any liens that are on the title report, and working with the buyer's lender to make sure they get the closing statement and the fees. They need their fees like immediately so that they can order their appraisal now. So, there's definitely a whole lot of moving parts in escrow, and it's impossible to take every single call at the same time. But we certainly do our best. I don't think anybody's ever going to complain about me that they can't ever get a hold of me, because I'm pretty good about that. We do our best, but it is a lot sometimes just to manage everybody's need. Everybody wants to be made feel like their concern or their question is the most important for this transaction, and we certainly do our best to make sure that we give an answer right away to help them feel that they're getting what they need as well.
And sometimes even if you don't have an answer, it's just the fact that you've received it and you'll work on it, and if you're busy, that people know that it's not just going to a black box. If I get, let's call it, in any given year, you get a handful of, people that are frustrated with their experience. Not necessarily you per se, but just the entire company. It is 9 out of 10 times is the communication, right? And so the communication for the job in escrow on the operational side is truly just the ability to manage all of the parties and the communication and updates for each individual one, because the seller updates are different than the buyer updates, and the lender updates are different than the title updates. So you're moving a lot of parts around. We always like to talk about escrow being the point guard of a transaction and just managing the and facilitating a bit.
Yeah, and we have to do all that while keeping a smile on our face through the phone and through an email and in person, and making sure that we don't direct any negative. For example, if we send out a seller package, or we open an escrow, it's a 10-day transaction, for example. We send out the seller paperwork, and the seller's sitting on it, not completing it. But we need that paperwork back right away, because we need to know who the loan is with, the loan numbers. We need to order that stuff right away, and we're not getting it back. So now we have to, we have to be diplomatic in the way we say, hey, we're not really getting a response here. Can you help us out? We can't just say, hey, it's the seller's fault. We're going to be delayed because the seller didn't do this. We can't say it that way, so we have to, be diplomatic and follow up in a nice way with, a smile on our face. So
yeah. There's probably a lot that you're doing outside of the purview of agents and lenders just to make the transaction continue to go, so agents and producers can go out and get more business, right? The idea being is if they hand a deal over to you, an executed contract, again, I would imagine every agent is a little bit different on how they like to be communicated. Some people want to know everything and every stage and every little detail. And then others are like, hey, let me know when my commission is ready to be wired. And how do you, in the beginning, when we talk about the sales end of what escrow does, how do you determine, or how do you talk to an agent that's newer working with you, and how they like to handle their clients, and how they like the communication with themselves, with the parties?
It's funny, as a story or a topic, something just came up to me where I started working with an agent, and something came up, and I talked to him on the phone. I was like, hey, you need to let me know these things right away if something happens so I can get involved. So, all right, I took a mental note. From then on, I started calling him on everything that came up, to the point where maybe like 4 calls in, he said, hey, Albert, you don't need to call me all the time anymore. I was like, oh, my man, I can't win, right? So, it's certainly like a growing process. And not everybody's going to be the same, like you mentioned. But for the most part, I kind of follow the lead. So if you're emailing me, I'm assuming that emailing you back is acceptable, right? If you're calling me, then I'm going to call you back. And from there, we start building a rapport, and I'll get to know you, and you'll get to know me, and I can certainly say, hey, you prefer a phone call, you prefer an email, and then they'll let me know, and we just start working that way. But for the most part, at the beginning, I'm just going to follow your lead. You call me, I call you. You email me, I'll email you.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. We talked a little bit earlier in the conversation with regard to Tanya, and because this is our own YouTube channel, we can plug New Venture whenever and however we want. But the one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is having a strong sales and marketing presence in front of agents, but making sure that escrow officers and sales are teaming up and working well together. I would love to, if you wouldn't mind sharing maybe some different things that has been critical or foundational from the standpoint of both yours and Tanya's working relationship and how it fits and how you guys communicate and work together with agents, and then how she works and what she does, and then what you do and how that works even when you guys are not maybe necessarily working in the same office, but working in the same company, and I guess sharing the same purpose of growing your business.
Yeah, I think the best word that I can say, if I had to sum it up in one word, is trust. Right? I met her. I met her when I first came to the company, and like I said, we hit the ground running for several different reasons. But she was, I think, in the beginning, more so in the beginning of her career in sales, she was motivated. She was hungry.
Yeah.
I was coming in to your company here, motivated and hungry. I'm pretty sure I came into that meeting and said, "Hey, I'm here to be number one."
Yeah.
Right. I did that McGregor thing, right? I'm not I'm not here to take part. I'm here to take over. Right? And
that was pretty good.
Yeah. So I think that vibed well between her and I, where we had the same goals, right? To like, let's do something. Let's not just close a few escrows and be average. Let's be above average. I wanted to be above average. It was always in my mindset to be above average. And I think that it was hers as well. And I think that I complimented her in the sense that she knew that however hard she felt she was working to get a client, that when she got it to me, that I would be working just as hard to keep the client, and vice versa. So I trust her to go out there and represent me, and to speak highly of me, and to do her job to get me the business. So I've always said this with her. She makes it rain, and I keep it raining. Right?
I like that.
Yeah. So she brings in the deal, and I keep the deals coming back, because success with an escrow officer has a lot to do with retention rate. A sales rep can get you a deal here and a deal there, but if you can't do a good enough job to retain the business and have that agent wanting to keep coming back to you, then that sales rep is going to be working overtime just to get you the one deal all the time, instead of getting you that one and then getting you the second one and getting you the third one. We're always focused on restarting that timeline instead of keeping what we get and then building off of that. And so I think that she does a very good job at what she does, in that she's great at getting me the business, and I think that I certainly work really hard to keep the business that she gives me. So we complement each other in that way, and we've built a whole lot of trust in each other, to where we don't necessarily have to question each other's motives or question whether or not she's out there, doing the best that she can, and she doesn't have to question whether I'm doing the best that I can, because I think it's an understanding that we've built over years, and she's just the best sales rep that I've ever worked with.
Yeah, no, she's incredible. She was our top producer last year, so she got a lot to celebrate, and you're a big part of that. So
yeah, and Courtney's awesome, Courtney's awesome too. But because I've been in Chula Vista, my relationship with Tanya has just been more nurtured in that sense. But they're all great.
Yeah, it's interesting. We do I do a lot of the interviewing for escrow officers, and one of the things we talk about is how we're gonna work to build your desk. But the work to build any unit's desk is not just, hey, come sit down and have the ability to close an escrow.
Right.
That is just the minimum barrier to being an escrow officer. The real, I guess, skill, in addition to being able to do escrow, is to be able to relate and communicate both with agents and our clientele, but also with our sales, and working collaboratively with sales so the agent relationship with the escrow officer, with the sales rep, it's also with the company. So if the company is providing, systems that work, they're fast, they're secure, there's, tools and technology that are going to be valuable to the agent, valuable to the escrow officer and the sales rep. Same thing too. The sales needs to be able to articulate those, and then the escrow officer has to deliver on the close, right? And so when all three of those are like foundational, the bar stool works, right?
Yeah,
Any one of
yeah.
those, falters
Yeah.
or falls apart, we're in trouble. And so I think
Sure.
that's one of the things we really strive. And part of when I do these interviews with any escrow officer is I talk about this is a team sport. Like escrow officers can't just sit there and hope that it's going to rain agent relationships. Relationships take time. They're
Right.
tough to build. They're tough to get. Every single agent that's ever done a deal is working with some escrow officer somewhere somehow, right? And so to move the relationship out of what they're currently getting and move it to your unit, that first deal is difficult. And then if that first deal doesn't go well, it's really difficult to get the second deal. So
Right.
there's a lot of pressure,
For
especially
sure.
in the beginning, as you're kind of like, it's like a first date, right?
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah. So sales, working with sales, not with hoping that sales is just going to drive all the business, but then also sales has to they have to follow up and make sure that those first couple of deals are going well and making sure that they're all communicating. So that's really where you go from escrow officer to top producer, right? Is being able to do a lot of those different things.
Yeah, and then just to touch on something you said about the relationships and talking to clients and whatnot. As an escrow officer, I pride myself on being able to answer those questions that come up, right? If every escrow that ever opened and closed was streamlined and done online and digital and nothing ever came up out of the ordinary, if every escrow opened and closed on the exact day it was supposed to open, if loan documents always came in at the exact time, if no property ever had a lien and everything was just perfect, then any escrow officer could do the job, right? It's not rocket science, right? But that's not the case because things come up all the time. Now, I think what separates me from many is that when I get a phone call about a topic, you'll never hear me say, well, no, that's not me. I have been doing escrow for 25 years. I'm very confident in what I do. I'm very confident in my knowledge, which I feel like I have an extensive amount of in residential resale business. I don't think there's very many scenarios that I haven't already seen or worked through. I know what I'm allowed to do. I know what I'm not allowed to do. And I feel like anytime something comes up, I can give an immediate answer to solve a problem or solution to solve an issue that came up, and not like, oh, well, let me ask, or it's a good one, I'll have to get back to you. Like that's not who I am. I'm very confident in my ability. I think I cast that on the phone when I talk to people, and I think that confidence has served me well, and I believe in myself, obviously, in my knowledge, and I think it's served me well. And I think that translates well when I speak to people because they feel confident that they're getting the answer. You know, you hang up the phone like, shit, that was cool.
Right.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that holdback, or yeah, we can do this credit, or whatnot. You know, this is a great answer. Figured out. I thought this was going to be a problem, and it's not, and that's great.
Well, I think it's so important is you learn through experience, and you get that experience through doing a lot of business, right? There's just something to be said about going through and working a pipeline every single day. You're seeing a lot of properties. You're seeing a lot of liens. You're seeing a lot of buyers and sellers with all kinds of different personalities that are all coming at each other, or again, I think there's just different scenarios, and doing a lot of business brings a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
And that's in all aspects of business, but specifically for escrow, I would imagine.
Yeah. Oh no, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the only difference is the stress that each individual deal will bring you, right? As far as, oh, we got to get this one closed because the seller needs to close on their purchase and need to move. They need to move, and we got the moving truck on the street, and we got to close today. Those are the stresses that make the day hard. But the actual paperwork portion of it, or the actual process of it, is not hard for me anymore. Like, I've done it so many of them that I'm confident to know what we need to do. It's just the timelines that we're given sometimes are the main issue.
So I was watching CNBC this morning before I came to work, and I saw Elon being interviewed, and he's just always a really interesting interview. And he talks about robots and how we're all going to have a robot. It's going to be within the next 2 to 3 years, and robots are going to be doing all this work. As we look at escrow, you talked a little bit about it as far as like something's always coming up. We're dealing with all kinds of different parties. So, but when you think about robotics, AI, the future of escrow, I get asked this question a lot. I'm curious from where your mentality is as to what the future looks like specific in this industry. What are your thoughts around it?
Well, I think that in the near future, I think it's very possible that we'll be seeing interactive links for completing paperwork. And I think that New Venture Escrow will probably be the first one to come up with that technology, wherein we send a seller, for example, a link to complete their paperwork, which we're already doing to do online. But this link will have an interactive assistant to it where the customer will be able to ask it questions or click on a specific question and get an answer, an automated answer. For example, the state withholding certificate 593 is the one that we would most often get a question on. As far as what exemptions apply. The most common exemption that people use for the 593 is the principal residence exemption, right? But the 593 states the property qualifies as your principal residence according to IRS code, yada, yada, yada. Well, to the average seller, they don't know what the IRS code is, right? So in that case, they don't know if the property qualifies because they may have only owned it for 5 years or 3 years, let's say. And so the code is 2 out of the last 5 years, right? Use as your principal residence. So maybe they lived in it and claimed it as their residence the last 4 years, and the last year they moved out and they don't know anymore, right? But on this form, they'll be able to either click a link or ask it, hey, what does the code mean? And the AI will come up and say, well, IRS code means, in a Siri voice, IRS code means 2 out of the last 5 years, and yada, yada. And then they'll be, okay, cool, that applies, check. And, things like that. I think I can certainly see you doing something like that, man. I could certainly see you doing that. I mean, we've had the videos in the past where we set the videos, and so I could totally see that.
Yeah, we've tried on a lot of different tech, and some we've swung and missed, and some we've done really well on. But we've always, I think, principally believed in technology assisting our team, whether that be on the sales side and certainly on the operational side. Our commitment to technology has never changed. The way in which we think about it is constantly evolving. It's like a river, kind of ebbs and flows through different stages, and ultimately we're just trying to use and build a platform for agent success and then the consumer success that is never ending, and you have to be committed to the process as just like an escrow, you have to be committed to the process to close. So I think we're far away from robotics doing escrow. I get this a lot, is like, what's your take on AI, especially from some of our team? It's like, wait, what are we doing with AI? How are we building or using or platforming AI? Is that going to displace any of the people that we're doing? I think the answer is not today. At some point, there will be some work that will be displaced. That in the real estate industry has always been further down the road than the rest of society, right? Like, the real estate space has been slow to adapt. It's too big of a transaction, and there's too many protections for the consumer to just hand it over to a learning model and expect that they're going to be able to handle all these different scenarios that have come up over 25 years. Now, not to say that some of those cannot be put into certain technologies to be able to assist or help, but there's going to be human oversight. There's going to be different things that are going to just change the way we do business.
Oh, no, yeah. If I could have some machines and I could just dictate to it what to type and send it out for me, that would be a lot easier for me, It's not to worry about my hands wearing down in carpal tunnel anymore and whatnot. So, I could just tell it, write this, send this email out, and that would be great.
I mean, the world is changing. We're in a really interesting time where there's a ton of innovation, and then with AI and some of the models that are already built, the ability to build technology, new technology, is just different. It's cheaper. It's faster. It's very progressive as we think about it. But that's for me to work on. That's for us to do. We know, at least being here for so long, that we've always done a good job as far as being part of the conversation with new and different ways in which we can do more business.
For sure.
And that's not going to change. AI is going to help, if nothing else.
Nobody will ever say that you're not trying.
We're not.
And I will not always agree on what you're trying.
That's right.
But nobody will ever dispute that.
I will say, as a little bit of back and forth, I've always appreciated your stance on this, because I am, and I've never have been an escrow officer, so I haven't sit in the seat. I do hope to ask questions to get a consensus as far as what things or ideas everyone has, but yeah, I haven't sat in the seat, and so a lot of times I do have to take the criticism of my ideas and be okay with that. If you're gonna, that's one thing. If you're gonna ask the question, you have to be okay with the answer.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I think we've always done a good job of being honest with each other, and I've always appreciated that. So
Yeah.
let's end with this. We've covered a lot in a short amount of time, but I would love for you to talk a little bit about what are some of the best parts about being an escrow? Some ideas, or just maybe some great deals that you've either done, or successes that you've had, or just things that fill you up, like make you excited about the career and the work that you do.
Yeah, I think those fuck yeah moments, right?
Yeah.
I said it earlier. Like if every escrow went perfect and according to the timeline and the plan, then okay, cool,
Yeah.
right? But that's not the case, and stuff happens. And so, just the last Friday, we closed an escrow last Friday, and the seller was trying to close on their purchase too. So our escrow was delayed. We got it closed on Friday. I talked to title. I had them pre-balance everything out, wire me money. And to their credit too, they were willing to play ball. They got me money so that I would be ready to push the button and wire out to the seller's purchase escrow as soon as we got confirmation on ours. I got them the wire right before the cutoff time. They were able to close on the seller's purchase that same day. Where typically we would record a transaction and disperse it the following day because title usually sends us the money the next day.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to do everything the same day, and I got that fuck yeah call.
Nice.
I got that fuck yeah, Albert. Like, thank you so much, buddy. Like, you got that done for us. Like, the seller was stressed out about closing and moving and yada yada yada. And so yeah, I think those are the ones that resonate the most now. The fuck yes.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Well, we'll end with that because everybody likes a good fuck yeah. And yeah, thanks for 10 or 11 years. We'll have to go back and check. But it's been a long time. I've loved working with you. Appreciate the insight today.
Yeah.
Albert, you're the man.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it.
That's a wrap.